The Australian police have just said something that has stopped this whole circus dead in its tracks. And if you think this is just a story about two people getting on a plane to Sydney, then sit down. Because what has unfolded in the past 48 hours is one of the most breathtaking exercises in having it both ways that this whole saga has yet produced. Let me lay it out for you in plain English, because the facts are extraordinary enough on their own without any embellishment from me. Harry and Meghan are heading to Australia this month. They told the world through their spokesperson in no uncertain terms that the trip is being funded privately. Their word, their statement, not a rumour, not a press insinuation. The official position of the Sussex communications team, delivered in response to a public petition that had already gathered tens of thousands of signatures from Australians who were not particularly thrilled about the prospect of their tax money being spent on a pair of California-based wellness entrepreneurs on a commercial jaunt. The spokesperson, bless him, went even further. He called the petition ridiculous. He suggested it was spreading misinformation. He implied that anyone worried about public money was, to put it mildly, wasting their time. And then the New South Wales police force issued a statement, and Victoria Police issued a statement. And both of those statements confirmed, in the language of institutions that do not deal in theatre, that police operations would be conducted throughout the visit with additional security measures put in place at a cost to be absorbed not by the event organisers, not by the Sussex private office, not by a single person connected to the couple, but by the Australian public purse. The very thing they said would not happen has happened before they have even landed. Now, I want to pause on the specific wording of the Sussex spokesperson's response to the original petition, because I think it is rather instructive. He said, and I want to give you this precisely, that one could equally hypothesise that there are approximately 26.5 million Australians who had not signed it, who must therefore agree with the taxpayer picking up the tab. He called that equally stupid. Those were his words. Equally stupid. So the official position, as articulated by the people paid to represent this couple, was that the question of taxpayer funding was absurd on its face, that anyone raising it was trafficking in nonsense. And within days, Australian police forces in 2 separate states had confirmed that public safety operations would be funded from police budgets with no reimbursement agreement in place. I do not think I have ever seen a spokesperson's statement aged quite so dramatically and quite so quickly. It is almost impressive in a rather painful way. Here is the detail that I think really matters, and it matters because it cuts through the noise in a way that no amount of carefully worded denial can. When ordinary commercial events or private visits by high-profile individuals take place in New South Wales, there is a standard mechanism. The organisers enter into a formal cost-sharing agreement with the police force. They pay for the enhanced security their event requires. It is a sensible arrangement. It keeps the cost with the people generating it rather than with the taxpayer who had no say in the matter. In this case, no such agreement exists. There is no cost-sharing arrangement. There is no reimbursement framework. The bill for the police operation simply goes onto the New Wales Police Forces tab, which means it goes onto the tab of every person in New South Wales who pays their taxes and goes about their ordinary life, entirely unconnected to anything happening in a luxury hotel in Coogee or at a psychosocial safety summit in Melbourne. Now, one of the justifications circulating for why the security needs to be elevated at all, which is rather interesting in itself, is the suggestion that there are people who might try to take photographs of Meghan at the Sydney event. That is being framed as a security concern serious enough to require a police operation. Taking photographs. at a publicly advertised, commercially ticketed event, advertised openly on a website, with tickets priced at between approximately 2,700 and 3,200 Australian dollars per person. A petition run by the advocacy group Beyond Australia has pointed out, with considerable justification I would say, that this framing looks rather a lot like a narrative being constructed to justify resources that would otherwise be impossible to defend. Taking a photograph at a public event is not a threat. It is something your nan does outside the village hall when the flower show is on.
Framing it as a security emergency and billing the public for the police response is,
to put it charitably, a rather creative use of the concept of risk. Over 43,000 Australians have signed the petition at the time I'm speaking to you. 43,000. And the petition does not read as though it was written by people who are hostile toward the couple personally. It reads as though it was written by people who are paying attention. They make a specific and rather reasonable point. Australia is in the middle of a genuine cost of living squeeze. Grocery prices, energy bills, mortgage stress. These are real pressures being felt by real families across the country. And into that context arrives a private commercial visit by two individuals who between them are reportedly pocketing appearance fees that make your eyes water, with their accommodation and travel also covered. And yet the bill for keeping them safe while they are there is apparently going to the very people who can least afford it. One entirely understands why 43,000 people felt moved to say something. And I want to say something about the broader principle here, because I think it matters beyond this particular visit. The issue at the heart of all of this is not really about Harry and Meghan personally. It is about a category of person that has become rather common in the modern world. The person who steps away from a public role, declares themselves a private individual, and then proceeds to trade on every ounce of the public association they have spent years insisting they have left behind, while simultaneously expecting the public infrastructure that was built around that role to continue serving them whenever it is convenient. You cannot be privately funded and publicly protected at the same time without someone noticing the arithmetic does not add up. Harry's court battles over his own security arrangements have been rather well documented. He lost his case to have state-funded British police protection reinstated. A court found that his objections to the decision were, and this is the official legal language, superficial. The British taxpayer is not paying for his security. That was decided. So he travels to Australia, where the question of who pays has apparently been resolved by the simple expedient of not resolving it at all, hoping nobody would ask too firmly, and then watching as two state police forces quietly confirmed what anyone paying attention already suspected. There is also the matter of the event organizer in Sydney, and this is where the whole enterprise takes on a rather particular texture. The company behind the Her Best Life retreat at which Meghan is due to appear, founded by promoter Gemma O'Neill, has already gone into liquidation. It owes significant debts. When the story of the financial arrangements around this tour began to surface, administrators confirmed that the company had limited assets and no obvious means of settling what it owes. And yet the show, as they say, is going on. Meghan will presumably appear. The police will presumably deploy. The public will presumably pay for at least part of the operation. I genuinely cannot think of a more perfect encapsulation of the entire Sussex commercial model. The infrastructure collapses, the debts accumulate, the organisers go under, and the appearance fee apparently remains intact. It is a particular kind of magic trick, and I have been watching it long enough to have stopped being surprised by it, though I confess I am not entirely sure one ever stops being astonished. There is also a rather delicious piece of background detail that emerged this week, and which I cannot quite resist mentioning. Reports have suggested that the visit is being filmed for a potential travel documentary about Australia. Australia, a glossy, landscape-focused piece celebrating Australian culture and cuisine, which is to say that the commercial enterprise being conducted on Australian soil, the one that triggered the public security bill now being discussed across the country, may also produce a piece of content for which the couple will receive further payment. The Australian public will fund the police operation that makes the filming safe. The couple will pocket the proceeds from the film. One finds oneself contemplating the architecture of that arrangement with something close to genuine admiration for its efficiency, if nothing else. I want to be clear about what I am not saying, because fairness demands it. I am not saying police should not do their job. Of course they should. The safety of any individual on Australian soil, whatever one thinks of their choices or their brand strategy or their commercial arrangements, is a proper matter for the relevant authorities. That is what police forces exist to do, and I would not suggest otherwise for a single moment. What I am saying is that when the people generating the need for that security turn around and tell the public that the whole enterprise is being funded privately, and then it turns out that it is not, that the public is in fact absorbing a portion of the cost, the very least that ought to follow is an honest acknowledgement of that fact, not a spokesperson dismissing those who ask as stupid, not silence from the Prime Minister's office, the Home Affairs Department and the Federal Police simultaneously. An honest conversation about what is actually happening and who is actually paying. Australia is a country I have always admired enormously. Straight-talking, practical, not particularly prone to being taken for a fool, and generally rather disinclined to accept arrangements that look unfair on their face. 43,000 of its citizens have said, quietly but clearly, that this particular arrangement looks unfair. And the police confirmation that dropped this week rather suggests those 43,000 people were asking the right question all along. The tour begins next week. The police will be there. The cameras, apparently, will be there too. And the Australian taxpayer, who did not book a ticket and did not ask for any of this, will be there in the only way available to them, which is in the budget line of 2 state police forces that have now confirmed what everyone with common sense already knew. This one was never going to be free.